Kevin, some of your thoughts here on Nvidia, which is at 218 and has been on an upswing recently, though it's down slightly today.
Yeah, it feels silly to say this about a stock like Nvidia, but it's actually turning into almost a valuation play. It has gotten, because it's made so much money and the stock has struggled on the upside. Now, it's had a nice rally this week, but overall, the stock is relatively cheap if you look at some of it. You know, a lot of times we talk on the show about the PEG ratio, which is the price versus earnings growth. It's got an extremely low PEG ratio. The forward PEG ratio is 0.53. Anything lower than a 1 is good. The expectations for earnings is 91.8 billion in revenue. That's 96% higher year over year. Earnings per share, $2.08. That's 98% higher than a year ago. Yes, it got a nice bump off the Elon Musk news that they're going to use it, but they have earnings coming out August 26th, and now we're kind of in that zone where the attention, now that we're through large cap tech, the attention's going to start turning to Nvidia, and the news cycles and the heightened awareness is going to be interesting for this stock. But it's had a nice jump this week on that Elon Musk news, for sure.
Yeah, really gaining some momentum. Tom, some of your thoughts here on Nvidia. A few years ago, it was less than $40. Now the recent high is $236. And I know the gentlemen are going to be showing us some example trades. But what's the big picture here as it's seeking its sixth straight winning session, which being down just 1/3 is certainly possible here between now and the end of the day?
I think the theme is price action. You look at it, this stock over the past couple of months have capped out around $213 a share. Hovering around, continued to hover around its 50-day simple moving average. Well, it's broken through there the last couple of sessions. We're up basically about 9% so far this week. So the breakout's finally taken place in this stock. It wasn't getting credit for 85% revenue growth last quarter. As Kevin mentioned, they're expected to grow 95% or more this quarter when they report in a few weeks. So that's been the story. The forward PE low compared to where Intel and AMD, competitors in this space, are by a lot, too. I mean, the forward PE, below the 23 times level at this point. So it's a valuation call here. Everybody continues to expect these growth rates for Nvidia and margins to kind of decrease, but margins are actually increasing at this point. Competition's coming in, right? AMD's got their new, high-end chip that's their MI 450. Their rack system Helios that's supposed to compete more with the Vera Rubin rack system. Will that take market share? Well, they're getting into CPUs, so they're going to go into what Intel and AMD have kind of been dominating as far as that goes. So, yeah, I think it's been discounted. It's finally broken out. I think price action's telling you that maybe investors are starting to get more excited as we head into earnings in a couple of weeks.
And Kevin, some of your thoughts here, because we're going to be also doing some example trades.
I think everything that Tom said, talking about the valuation of this name and all the good news going forward. I think, remember, they've got an August 26th earnings event coming up. I think it's going to be nothing short of spectacular. I think you have to, as an options trader, you have to prepare yourself for that. That's what this paper money trade that we're looking at is doing. It's going to prepare yourself for that earnings event. So we're going to do a paper money trade here that does one of two things. Number one, it goes past the earnings event. I'm buying long calls in the September 4th expiration. And then I'm using time. I'm selling this week, and so I'm turning it into a calendar butterfly, kind of a hybrid unbalanced butterfly. So I'm buying one of the 220 calls. That's in September 4th. I'm selling two of next week's 230 calls. They expect to move out till August 14th, 10 days. So lining up that 220, 230 call vertical, or it's actually a diagonal. Then just to add more theta and lower our cost even more, we are selling another vertical call spread, the 230, 235 in the August 14th, Tom. So this is kind of a hybrid calendar spread / unbalanced butterfly, but it's using the short-term trades to chip away at the price of that long-term trade. And eventually, Tom, we'll be extending duration right into that earnings event.
Yeah, let's break down Kevin's custom three-legged spread here, kind of an altered butterfly here. Kevin went out to the September 4th weekly options on this trade. So he's given himself some duration on this one. You're going to capture the earnings event with this one. 29 days to expiration, buying one of the 220 strike calls. Then in the near-term options, the August 14th weekly options that expire in about 8 days, he's going to sell a short call vertical, but it's a ratioed one where he's going to sell 2 of the 230 calls and buy 1 of the 235 calls. As a package, going to pay roughly about an 840 debit. That's where it's currently trading on this one. So you take that into consideration. What's the risk on this? You're buying a power effect is about $842, right, on this one. Your longer-term option, 29 days to expiration, is the bullish portion of this trade. So take that into consideration. That'll last throughout the duration of this trade. Pay that 840 debit. Your break-evens on this, where you want the stock to go, is above maybe 218 on the downside, and below about 238 on the upside. So there's the range that the stock can trade in over the next 29 days. You're going to be profitable. Now, remember, the short 2x1 call vertical in this one, that ratioed short call vertical, expires in just 8 days. And Kevin mentioned you can maybe extend duration on something like this where, hey, you want that to kind of go out worthless, right? And then as the stock grinds higher, maybe you sell another call vertical or another ratio call vertical against this type of position. Apex of profitability at or near that 230 strike over the next 8 days where you're short 2 options on this one. So it's kind of a hybrid type of trade that gives you upside exposure. What you don't want to happen is the stock to fall from current levels, right? You don't want it to go below 218. Or you don't want the stock to explode over the next 8 days to go above that 235 level on the upside here. So it gives you that upside exposure on this one. But I think the key is you got the longer duration bullish portion of this trade in that September 4th weekly option that expires in 29 days where you're going to actually capture that earnings event on this bullish trade. Kevin, I went a little bit more directionally biased here to the downside where if you think the stock's going to fail going into maybe the next couple of weeks, this takes advantage of that. I think this gives you a little bit more flexibility, too, as far as when you might be able to get out of it if you see pullbacks. Remember, this stock's about $5 off of its session highs today, so we've seen some weakness after a strong last 5 sessions for this stock. Went out to the August 21st weekly, monthly options that expire in 15 days. Bought that 220 strike put. That's in the money by about $1.50, right? There's the bearish portion of this. And then against it, to offset some of the costs on this bearish trade, sell the 205 strike put. That's where you want it to go. That's where you get max profitability below 205. You're going to pay roughly about a 530 debit on it. Might be trading a dime lower than that right now. But if you pay that 530 debit, that's going to be your risk, $530 per spread on this trade. Where does it take your break even down to where you want the stock to go? Well, it's about 214.70 to the downside. So on a percentage basis, Kev, you don't need a big move to the downside to get below that break even. And this is one of those trades that could be speculative. Maybe you own the shares. You could use it as a hedging type of trade also. But you definitely need to move to the downside. You just don't need as big of a move as what the option market's pricing in for that option series, Kev.
Yeah, you gave yourself some duration here, but you also stayed ahead of the earnings event. And so if you have, stock to protect, this would do that up until the earnings event. Remember, you would still have to do something for the earnings event because this would be done before there. But the market, the overall market could sell off. Nvidia itself could sell off. There could be a lot of reasons, but the risk is the debit paid, and it's a $15 put vertical. So at $5.30, you almost get paid a triple.
We could go 7,900 to 8,000 this month alone. So this momentum's going to continue.
Yeah, I think the deleveraging that happened a couple of weeks ago put a lot of cash on the sidelines, got sentiment quite bearish, and then on top of people getting very skeptical of the Fed, got markets to de-risk. And now I think as earnings have been good, and I think there's a rethink of how inflation might be cooler than expected, and of course AI is still strong, there's going to be a chase. I think that chase takes us towards 7,900, 8,000.
Most people who are putting out bullish notes cite both of the facts that you did. This major deleveraging process, which was a reset for the market. There was no real fundamental change in anything. It was just there was some froth that needed to be worked out. There was some leverage that got a little bit too high, and all of that needed to be worked out. And then the backbone of the whole thing, the earnings. John Waldron of Goldman was talking about that just yesterday morning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, earnings this quarter is coming in more than $15 ahead of what people expected at the start of the quarter. But what's really more impressive is 2027 earnings are up now $8. So we're probably close to $4.10 for 2027 earnings. And we're only 3 weeks into earnings season. I actually think it might settle out closer to $4.25 by the time earnings season's over.
Does it sound reasonable to you? And it's not just Tom, obviously. It's, I've been hearing more 8,000 calls sort of, day by day with Ed Yardeni saying his 82.50 could be conservative for the very reason that Tom just suggested. Earnings are just really good.
Yeah, I mean, and as we're seeing on the screen, the S&P is already at 7,700, so 8,000. No disrespect. I mean, it's not a huge lift percentage-wise.
I think the implication, though, is like that's just the next stop in this train.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing with the earnings is even if you X out technology and you subtract, say, 10 percentage points off the gross number, earnings are still good. And when you listen to, as many of us do, any number of companies in any number of industries,
almost all of them.
Yeah, the AI story is going well from Eaton and 3M and those adjacent companies. You look at the charts of the KRE, the BKX, the financials are at highs, the KIE, the insurance companies are at highs. The commentary across the board from the card companies who I mention every quarter about consumer spending just fine. So you have all the investment themes going on, AI, power generation, et cetera, et cetera. The consumer's doing fine. Jobless claims 2 weeks in a row, sub 200. For viewers out there who are not aware, under 200,000 in jobless claims didn't happen one time from 2000 through basically through COVID. These are exceedingly incredible numbers. And so just when you take a step back from one being bullish or bearish, the backdrop is positive. Now, the valuation argument is something we can have. You look at SanDisk and some of the moves in those names, obviously South Korea, but the fundamental backdrop is still very positive.
What do you make of this? I mean, we've had obviously a bit of a reset. We're still in an environment, though, where the street is craving maybe more robust guidance than we're getting from some.
Yeah, I think what these numbers are showing us is that just as we're seeing in software, the same with memory, beat and raise is not enough. You actually have to beat and really, truly raise, right? So let's look at SanDisk. They did beat revenue, but not by what we've seen over the last recent quarters. And so when you have expectations as high as they are, I think what we're now seeing is investors pull back and reassess where does memory go from here, especially as they're trying to transition from cyclical businesses to one with these long-term agreements.
Does that mean incrementally less demand for leveraged names, or maybe more demand on the leveraged shorts?
Well, what's interesting is there's been a ton of leverage taken on the system. If you look at Korean retail investors, their margin balances, it was at 38 trillion won most recently at the peaks in June. That's actually come down to now 27 trillion, which is what the year started with. So that played a big role. And then what we're also seeing is, of course, the situational awareness situation where that fund was long a lot of these names. And so now we're beginning to see a bit of a shakeout and a repositioning of where the actual fundamentals look relative to positioning.
JP Morgan earlier in the week argued that, to your point about Korean leverage, that enough had been wrung out to where maybe you could argue you're back to some level of normal. You go along with that?
I think that's most definitely true. If you just look at the data, it was astronomical how much leverage was in that system. And now, we're beginning to reset. What's interesting, though, is if you look at DRAM flows, actually from the peak to the trough, there was 10.4 billion of inflows during that period. So investors are actually still allocating toward this sort of theme and trade more broadly, while certainly kind of, I think, reassessing some of the individual stocks.
I guess then the question is, how do the earnings reports from these two big names change perhaps the long-term trajectory of memory and just storage in general?
Well, I think, again, a lot of this was the expectations were so incredibly high. But if we look at what the companies actually said, is that there is this longer-term transition happening from the ability to have these longer-term consistencies, right, with floors and pricing and then perhaps some ceiling. And so there's some noise as the companies transition to that. Now, that said, we have SanDisk Investor Day next week, August 13th. I think the corporation was trying to be a little bit cautious heading into that, where maybe we'll begin to see if that's the next catalyst for the theme going forward.
And then NVIDIA on the 26th. They always make us wait, but it's one of the most important dates in earnings season, right?
Well, NVIDIA is one of the most important dates, not just for earnings season, but for the market, just simply based off of its size. And what's interesting is we've now seen a rotation back into NVIDIA, which was a laggard until kind of most recently, as the memory chips really kind of took all the air out of the semi trade. And what we're now seeing is, again, investors, let's have a pause, let's have a reset, and kind of see where semis go from here.
How much do you think SpaceX, the pressure we've seen it under in recent weeks, is contributing to sort of sentiment across the Nasdaq? I raise that because Evercore ISA out with a note saying that stability in SpaceX would actually help influence the AI trade, they say.
I actually would agree with that point, because I think it's actually part of the broader context is that we're in a market now where there's a ton of equity supply. We were in a market where there was just a ton of demand without the supply, and now we've seen a flood of it, right? So we see issuance from companies like Alphabet. Obviously, the SpaceX IPO took an incredible amount of interest, especially from retail investors wanting to move into that name, and it's been a solid underperformer since then. You had the SK Hynix ADR, so investors were really beginning to kind of position for some of this new issuance, and that has now set us up for saying, well, what really are the fundamentals of these companies, which, if you read the earnings report, were still incredibly strong.